Hi guys, I hope you guys have been doing well. I hope you all have been staying safe. I want you to know Miss Lanham and I, we have missed you and we can't wait to see you all live on Monday for our live classroom session. Miss Lanham and I had no idea that when we told you we would see you all on Monday, that it would be a few Mondays before we would see you all again. But we're going to get through this. This is just for the next few weeks, hopefully, that this is going to be the way we're just going to have to be meeting. But hey, we're used to technology. We can do this. We've been doing Google Slides. We've been doing Google Maps. So now we're just going to be meeting together for hopefully the next few weeks through the remote learning. So hey, this is just increasing our technology. So as you know, we have the unit that we have been doing. We have been working on the Middle Ages. And the last time that we met, we were still working on our feudalism pyramid, and we've been working up through our feudalism pyramid. We've already touched on serfs, and we worked our way up through the serfs and the peasants, and now we're on the knights. And the last time we met, we were reading a text called Knights and the Shining Armor. So I want us to pick right back where we were discussing in the Middle Ages about the knights, where they fall in the feudalism pyramid. So as you can see in my digital learning, my platform for you all, I have put in there for you all the text that we were reading, Knights in the Shining Armor. So what I'm going to do for you all, we are going to continue reading the text that we were at. So what I did was I highlighted the text where we were. So I've highlighted the text. The only thing I didn't do was I didn't make the annotations because I thought that would just be a little too jumbled and you wouldn't be able to read it as well. So when we get back in class for our live session, then we will go back and we will add those annotations because we had our vocabulary words annotated. So that's when we'll go back and we'll make those annotations. So what we're going to do, just to refresh, we're going to go back and we're going to read this text prior to our live session on Monday the 13th. So just in case you have forgotten what this text was about. So while I am reading this text to you, I want you to read along with me, okay? So, Knights in the Shining Armor. I'm in paragraph 1. Around the 8th century, the nobility began to see the need for an army made up of cavalry, which are horsemen, and wearing armor. They were called knights. For these men to afford the equipment and horses they needed, the Lord would grant them lands, in other words, make them vassals. Charles Martyr used this system to raise a national army with which to fight the Muslims, and local nobles began using the same system. Really want you to pay attention to paragraph 1. Again, Charles Martyr used this system to raise a national army with which to fight the Muslims, and local nobles began using this system. Paragraph 2. Becoming a knight was the result of a long process. A boy from a good family offered to serve a baron or a warrior following him into combat, which is war, and carry his shield and spear. It required much exercise, learning to ride, practicing the weapons of the trade, which is a job, and coping, which means dealing with fatigue, which we talked about means to be tired. It also involved learning proper manners around ladies, such as politeness, courtesy, and helplessness. When he reached manhood, he prepared to receive knighthood, wearing robes with colors signifying purity and devotion. He prayed and fasted Fasted, we know it's one of our vocabulary words, which means you do not eat for a period of time, which could be, for example, while the sun is up, you don't eat, but when the sun is down, you do eat. For example, when the sun is up, you may just have liquids, but when the sun is down, that's when you eat. Where I told you I had an example where a friend of mine was in college due to religious purposes. When the sun was up, she did not eat. She was fasting, so she had liquids. When the sun was down, that's when she ate. So she was fasting. And people still do fast today. He was instructed by a priest on the true meaning of knighthood. He then took the vow. A vow is a promise of chivalry, which included purity, valor, compassion, defense of the church, and loyalty to the king. He knelt before a prince or a warrior who struck him lightly on the shoulder with the flat of the sword and said, "In the name of God, St. Michael, and St. George, I make thee a knight. Be valiant, bold, and loyal." And on our last day, remember I showed you all a video where Queen Elizabeth, she still does knight people to this day, but it's more of symbolism. And we know symbolism is a vocabulary word. It represents something, an idea, where, for example, Queen Elizabeth, she still does knight people because maybe they have done such an honor, maybe because of their courage, or maybe because of they have given to charities, they've given back to their community. So she knights them as an honoring them as a symbol. And I showed you where, for example, the people that she has knighted, and we saw a clip where she knighted Pierce Brosnan, who is an actor, but he's done these great deeds. So in thanking him, she knighted him. The next paragraph. The point of knighthood was the crusade, and many knights bound themselves together in orders, like religious orders, dedicated to fight the Muslims. French knights formed the Knights Hospitallers. The Knights Templars was an order composed of knights from many nations. The Teutonic Knights were German. A group dedicated to freeing Spain from the Muslims was the Knight of the Santiago de Compostela. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. The purpose of the knight was to fight, and much of his life was spent in warfare. That means in war. In the earlier days of knighthood, a charge by men on horseback was more than enough to scatter men on foot. In time, however, new weapons came along that lessened the shock of a knight's attack. In the 13th century, the crossbow was developed. Firing a metal bolt, a foot soldier could use a crossbow to penetrate, that means to go through, a knight's armor. We talked about their armor. However, it had major limitations, that means drawbacks. The crossbow was cumbersome, that means difficult, hard to wear. It had to be loaded mechanically and had short range. The longbow was another useful weapon. It could not pierce armor. It means it couldn't go through his armor. But when fired in volleys, it broke up charges on horseback. Anything that caused the horseman to fall off his horse was effective. Because the weight and bulk of his armor, he was defenseless on foot. He wasn't any good on foot. In the early years of the feudal system, becoming a knight was a way to improve one's position in life, to move up. But eventually that door of opportunity shut. People born into the upper class believed it was family, not service, that should fix a person's status. That means where you ranked. The process of becoming a knight then became more ritualistic. That means a certain way of doing something. With a boy from an upper class family, automatically became a page at the age of 7 and a squire at about 14 or 15. And then going through the ritual ceremony of becoming a knight. You just had to go through processes of becoming a knight. Fewer and fewer boys from poor backgrounds were let into the knighthood. So we've read our text. As you can see, Ms. Bean highlighted the information for you. Now, I have also attached the questions. Looking at question 1, it says, who used knights to fight the Muslims? I want you to go back to paragraph 1, which is right here in the text, and I want you to answer question 1. Prior, that means before coming to class, and answer that question. Who used knights to fight the Muslims? Which can be answered with your answer if you go back to paragraph 1. Remember, you need to restate the question. You need to use correct end punctuation. So, if you need to, go back, replay this recording to help you with answering question 1. You can just write this on a sheet of paper and make sure you restate the question and use capitalization and use correct end punctuation, and I will see you Monday at our live session. Okay? I'll see you all then, guys.